Hello and welcome to the Good, the Bad and the Just Plain Standard podcast. Today you'll hear our thoughts about Aladdin 2019. But before that, we have a few things to talk to you about. So first of all, we'll put our Patreon on pause for a few months for a reason that we've just talked about. And it has to do with the fact that our lives are busy these days, but we still want to be there for you guys. So it's not pod fading we're talking about, or pod stopping, or any of that. It's just pod transforming, I would say, if that is such a word. There is not, but so essentially, we did not get any episode out in September. We were at last, and after a month of discussing it in Provence for some time with the whole podcasting team, and that was that. And yeah, so in October you'll get. So we discussed about the new formula, which my two co-hosts are next to me without microphones, so yeah. So essentially the idea is to have episodes more researched, more focused on, the films, and to change the scheduling a bit. So essentially it's 2 months, way more researched, longer, that you'll get from, at some point, I'll develop that in a minute. But essentially in October, you should have 2 episodes, which should be Aladdin 2019, this one, and also after that, Rocketman, which were recorded with the old formula, and the following month, you'll have, was a Toy Story, first double bill ever, Toy Story 1 and 2 in one episode, and Upgrade. That's probably will be the last of the standard formula thingy. After that, which will probably when we will start our Patreon, you'll have at least. So we always had this thing, the old version. Like you'll at least get 2 episodes a month, which you always had at least 2. We tried to do it weekly, but sometimes it didn't work. So you at least bi-weekly. Now the idea is to get at the very least once a month, so it's becoming a monthly thing, and with the ideally 2. The video will stop, except maybe when if we manage to have guests with smaller formula episodes. Well, we're still unclear on that, but it's way too with all the moving and all the it's always been a hassle. Well, some videos are being seen by plenty of people, but it's not necessarily the ones where we're actually being seen on them. So I think I've said what I had to say on the subject. You'll have as a bonus another reminder of what I just said in all the ancient, old formula episodes before we start a new one. So enjoy Aladdin 2019, and thanks Anouk for editing it. Enjoy Aladdin. Ciao. Hello everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
We're back. It's
Yay.
the Good, the Bad and the Just Plain Standard podcast. Another animation. It was originally.
It is and it isn't.
Dubbing, also known as language replacement, substitutes a target language with each person appearing on screen. Dubbing services are recorded by professional voice actors who mimic the expressions, tone and lip sync of the actor on screen, but in a different language. There is a nice Future Trends article on this and voiceover that I'll put the link description at some point.
Or give it to me so I can read it all out.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Let's
You
do
don't
that.
have the time, Adam.
Bilingual corner. If we released Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse before this, you would have heard about the problem between Robin Williams and Disney on that film. We talked a bit about how there was a definite shift at some point where the actors were just like, we didn't know their name.
Yeah, we talked about how there's a trend in 2000, so in animation, that celebrities were the big selling point of movies rather than the stories themselves.
Bilingual corner. So essentially, Robin Williams was the genie in the original version. In the French version, for this I then watched the original one, 1992, in French first and in original afterwards. The actor playing the genie is a very, we really have famous voiceover actors, but this one, his name is Richard Darbois, and he pretty much every Harrison Ford movie he dubbed, and Jones, Blade Runner, and pretty much everything.
Oh, wow.
Danny Glover also in Lethal Weapon and Saw.
Of course, yes.
Richard Gere in Pretty Woman, Patrick Swayze in Ghost, Dan Aykroyd in Ghostbusters 1 and 2, Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, and Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator and Conan, and Val Kilmer in Willow.
Oh, wow.
Bloody hell. Extensive career.
Yeah, great.
All the last ones is just a couple of movies. It's always been weird to me because then it's not consistent. Most of the other movies of those American actors will have different French voices then. But I'll also put some links about like inside the weird world of international dubbing. There are obviously also the ones that I love always, the actors, actresses who are actually doing their own. So Christine Scott Thomas, Jodie Foster, and Helena Bonham Carter, they're all doing their own French dubbing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the original, as I said, was made in 1992.
And we're doing Aladdin 2019 with reference to Aladdin 1992. Unlike Ghostbusters, where we did two separate movies, it's Aladdin, it's a remake, it's the whole Disney reboot sort of thing. So to put them together is fair. The marketing in the movie does that as well. So
Sure.
I did remember most of the stuff I remembered. I think in my childhood, in 1992, I watched it like a couple of times, and I remembered two specific songs: the Prince Ali and what in the original version is called "The Brave New World," but it's "Ce rêve bleu" in French. I remembered those quite a bit.
a whole new world, you mean?
A whole new world. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. A Brave New World is the Aldous
It's an
Huxley.
Iron Maiden song.
It's also
A novel by Aldous Huxley?
Yeah.
True.
The original was an hour and a half. This one is 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Wow.
Feels it, bro.
Yeah.
Aw.
Watching the second one afterwards, it's like, oh yeah, they added plenty of stuff in there.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing. Because I came in halfway when Yann was watching the French version, I saw the last 45 minutes probably of the French version and then watched the original again. So I've seen probably 2 hours 15 of both.
I enjoyed it quite a bit, to be honest. Again, I didn't care about the song. However, after watching the original, it's fascinating to realize that it looks like the filmmakers of this took every single problematic element, and I'm using the word ironically, and painted it with SGW Woke 66 pigments. And now is the moment for the pitch meeting. I don't know if you've ever heard about Screen Rant pitch meetings.
I've seen a couple.
Okay, so we've essentially altered all the problematic elements of our original movies and made it more woke. Yes, so the Grand Vizier of Agrabah has now been revamped to be in line with 2019 views. His anti-wokeness Jafar, symbol of evil patriarchy, mansplains and interrupts Jasmine constantly. Oh, I see, well played. Well, at least he's not portrayed by the white male. No, that would have been too obvious, and we realized that we actually don't need to bring a famous actor to play him. We know we will make plenty of money anyway. It is a beloved story which spawned many sequels and remakes. Wait, do you mean that whitewashing is usually done because there are more bankable white actors than actors fitting what is required for a specific role? Shut up, you racist moron. Sure, what's next? That scene in 1992 when Aladdin falls into the sea and the genie takes his unconscious nod as a yes to grant the wish to save him from drowning? Yes. Well, it's obviously problematic to do that in 2019 when consent has to be agreed in writing. Oh, I see. Very rapey attitude from the genie there. So how do we solve this? Well, we'll do exactly that. Aladdin signs a consent contract. But he does not really sign it, does he? Because he's still unconscious and the genie has to force Aladdin to sign it, no? Shut up, you don't understand anything about script writing. Ah, gotcha. Early on in the original, Aladdin and Abu steal a loaf of bread. They are sharing it in half, and when Aladdin sees orphans in the street, he goes to give them his bit. Abu initially does not. He wants it for himself. This is triggering. We can't have a selfish sidekick for the titular character. We'll remove that, and actually, while we're at it, we'll remove most of what made the charm of Abu in the original film. Eh? Don't worry, kids love cute animals. Okay. Also, Jasmine was kind of a damsel in distress in 1992. Indeed, we need to solve that? Exactly. She doesn't care about love that much anymore, but the good of the people. So she wants to be sultan now. Oh, okay. Sounds way better, yeah. I have a bit of an unrelated question, though. Reading the new script, I'm wondering, isn't that a bit racist that the genie assumes that Aladdin must have a real master right from the get-go? Like, only a white male could have succeeded in getting to the lamp by tricking a brown dude? Shut up, you racist douchebag. Oh, I see my prejudice now. Thanks for enlightening me. Oh, and about Jafar also? Yeah? It went full slimy Jabba the Hutt at the end of the original animation film with his Leia Jasmine sex slave thing. We can't have any of that in 2019, so it's gone. Yeah, okay, I literally don't know anymore. And finally, we'll make sure to have a mute Yago. A mute Yago. Yeah, 95% of what he's talking about and doing in the original film is highly triggering for 2019 woke audiences, so... But aren't we in the business of kids' entertainment rather than woke, whatever that means, entertainment and social justice? You are a fascist. Reported blocked.
That's really good. That's quite well written.
I talked a while ago about how I definitely stopped watching, outrage videos and like, oh yeah, the whole Captain Marvel thing and everything. There was obviously talks mostly about the fact that suddenly Jasmine had agency.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the original, it was not at that level, but she was kind of like she had that. So I think they made it something that we didn't care at all in the end.
Yeah, they seemed to take away she had agency, but it was slightly childish. And I think they wanted to make her more of an adult, but I think that actually made her less of a character. It made her a little bit like a blank wall quite a lot.
In the new one?
In the new one. I mean, so like in the 1992 version, she's like harumphing around and like storming off and, she's acting like a spoilt teenager, which gives her agency, of course. In this one, it's almost like they thought, okay, how do we make this more woke, as you say?
Well, it has to be empowering because, Ripley was not empowered. Linda Hamilton was not empowered. No one was empowered before 2018, was it?
Of course.
I think in this case, it's when we think about I'm the same boat. It was seeing some reviews of this made me go, all right, there's a certain criteria in YouTube film critique. There are differences. There are some content makers like I Hate Everything, which are part nitpicky, part review, right? And he's been doing a recent new thing where he actually talks about what he thinks about movies as opposed to his sort of I hate things, which are really nitpicky. And even going into like things like cinema sins and all that there are a specific category of picking apart things at the seams, every tiny detail. And there's also play to your audience. If you know your audience is there to be like, yeah, I can't wait for him to rag on this movie, then obviously the criticism is going to be hyped up, even if it's a performance for the video. But in that regard, I've stopped watching these reviews in sense of critique and more of entertainment.
Yeah,
and being able to do that, because I think there's a difference when you can see that it's not an act, maybe not, but just a heightened annoyance. Well, kind of like me on Wing and a Fi. I mean, I got really outraged for no reason, picking it apart when it doesn't need to be picked apart, that sort of thing. Like, there are moments like that you feel, but there was nothing in this film that would outrage me enough to tear it to shreds. I've kind of been thinking about that the last few days. Like, I enjoyed it. I'm like, but why am I slightly annoyed by it? And then I was trying to work out what it is. And now that I've kind of stepped away, I'm like, there's nothing in this that is outwardly, I'm angry. So some of the reactions I've seen are a bit like, okay, come on, this is a bit extreme.
But isn't that the most amazing marketing thing that Disney does all the time? That like, let's keep it bland enough to not offend the majority of people. And that's kind of what this film has done. Like, they've taken away all character from any of the CGI animals. Mm-hmm. Jasmine is a woman, an empowered woman with agency, and she's brown, and it's empowering and awesome. But it also takes away quite a lot of her character, because it's almost like saying that Jasmine can only be empowering if there's nothing wrong with her. And actually that's the opposite of empowering. You need to be human. That's all that feminism wants. It just wants more women to be human rather than just a damsel in distress or like one, what's it called, monofaceted.
It's kind of like in a way of trying to be, to use Yann's word, woke. People are scared of like, right, let's make a woman one-noted, but a good one-noted. It's like, yeah, but that's not human. So that's in the same sense, you've shot yourself in the foot. You're not empowering anybody. You're kind of representing this, again, unobtainable goals. I will say in the original animation, I was like, Jesus, how thin is Jasmine? He blows over, like snaps in half.
The 92 one.
Yeah, the 92. But
yeah. I mean, that's Disney princesses, though. They're tiny.
I don't know why Hollywood... I know why. It's because there's not enough female writers in the room.
Possibly.
To write really rounded female characters that... It's like, humans have flaws. You know, we all have different qualities, all that jazz. It's like, nobody has to be so...
I think
there was not really any fun to her, was there? And then in the 92 version, there is a bit of like flirtation between her and Aladdin, but I mean, that was sort of there, but it was like really not fun in a way.
They basically didn't allow her to enjoy herself, which would have been nicer to see. I think her being a little bit more fun, because she was a little bit like, oh, you know, now I'm empowering and a machine.
Print the Disney buck.
It's funny you talked about honest reviews and shifting to entertainment for entertainment value in the YouTube videos. It's funny because I only realized, I think it was a few months ago, Trevor Noah said something. So essentially, everyone with no, I'm just talking for myself. I'll get to what Trevor Noah said like in a minute. I'm really annoyed, and I think it's weak and lazy with all the Trump derangement syndrome. Everyone is doing essentially the same joke and all the time. So that's a bit like, yeah, well, I see that's important to joke about politics, but it's always like bashing on the same guy. So I just like, well, okay, all those late night shows are just assholes. So, and actually, I think it was a couple of months ago, Trevor Noah said, yeah, actually, I don't hate the guy. It's just that it sells.
For sure.
You have a massive amount of views. Like, obviously, you'll go into it. I think that's lazy, but so I won't do it. And I actually don't. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's because you can't say anything about the supporters, which are in some cases the problem. It's like take on the figurehead. It's like we've got it here. It's like rip into Boris Johnson, but it's the people behind Boris Johnson you got to worry about. You know, the figurehead is always at the end of years and years. There's a very good speech that sums up. It's like always be aware of getting rid of one monster because there's always something a lot worse behind it. Mm-hmm. So I think everyone is like picking the one thing that's funny because you know it's easy to make fun of.
Yeah, and also it's
popular.
It's distracting as well. It's like everyone likes to, bash Trump, but
nobody in
the background. No, but in the background, horrible things are happening, and you have the rise of neo-Nazis, the also rise of the crazy left, like both sides of the same coin.
So should we go and try into the thing that you were thinking about a while ago, Adam? What? Because I have the Rotten Tomato scores for both the movies. So what's the original idea was? What's this reason for existing or something?
So the thing is, I was thinking of things to do with because we used to do like themed months and stuff like that. And I was thinking along the line of Saw, I'm like, do we want to do another horror one or do we want like a side series? Because we've had The Vault, and The Vault's a good one to do when we need to pick up some episodes or we would specifically want to talk about certain movies. Common criticism is the Rotten Tomatoes scores. And the first time I really been aware of that was the Suicide Squad and Batman vs. Superman. All these movies had terrible critical scores, but high audience reviewed scores. And there's opposite the other way as well, high critical but low audience reactions. So I thought for a laugh, and I checked if any other podcasts kind of do this, and if there is, somebody point them out, because I couldn't find any. People don't necessarily talk about films that have polarizing scores. One of them I want to do is the Peter Jackson King Kong, which has a really surprising shift, high critical but low audience, right? So we look at that film and we talk about it as the same way we do as we talk about films, and then at the end we go, well, good, bad, discipline standards, and where do we agree? Do we agree with the critics or the audience, depending on which side it goes? Mm-hmm. So, and it works for this one because this one had quite a low, as Yann will tell you, You want to tell us the scores?
Yeah, so it's not as bad as some certain who have like 95 and 22 here.
Yeah.
I'll give you the proper numbers, and that's post Captain Marvel system. So now you have to have seen the movie via an approved, like Fandango or Rotten Tomatoes website to actually have your approved critics. But
oh, right, okay.
yeah, 57% or 588 out of 10 from 328 approved Tomato Meter critics.
So 58.
That's always been the critics approved, so that did not change. 94% or 4.59 out of 5 from 48,000 approved audience members out of 63,000 total. So you have the two numbers, but the one that jumps at you right away are the approved audience members.
So 58 plays 94, right?
And as a quick reference, the 1992 one was 94% or 814 out of 10 from 70 approved tomato critics, and 92 or 435 out of 5 from 9,000, almost a million.
Right, okay.
Audience members. And the approved thing was in place at the time.
There's a lot of numbers in there.
Okay, so audiences loved it, the 2019 Aladdin, and critics were not so happy.
The thing is with this as well is the only real people that will, the audience scores, right, is either it's like TripAdvisor. If you have a really bad experience, you go on and do it. If you had a really good experience, you go on and say it. And then you get the silence of maybe 3, 4, half in the middle bit. So the audience score is always skewed either really high or really low. And then there's makes up the middle of it of people going, okay, because I'd quite like to start putting doing Rotten Tomato stuff maybe if I had free time, just to add our own thoughts to try and balance it out depending on which way we feel. Because sometimes with these big ones, especially like superhero movies and Disney as well, because it's loved, you'll get a lot of people that will passionately love the movie regardless if it's good or not. That's the idea of the show, is okay, let's figure out what the skew is. Or is it made up of fan people, or is it justified? So we figure out where we're going with it.
And obviously with the numbers, you've got comments and the actual text critic stuff. So you the one thing that is nice about having all type of reviews, the bad ones also, is that most of the time I can get that. I see what they mean, but I actually don't care.
Yeah.
So I see that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So, all right, let's pick this apart, shall we?
How many audiences do you think watched the original Aladdin before they went to see the 2019 one?
I think it was clever to do Aladdin at this point, because the thing is with Disney is when they release films on the Blu-rays, they don't get cheaper. Disney films are the only films that remain a ridiculously high price forever. They never go on sale because they know people will always want to upgrade. I remember buying a Blu-ray version of The Lion King and it was 20 quid. It was never going down. I'm like, Jesus. It's The Lion King came out in 96 and it's still 20 quid?
It's also one of these relatable stories. I mean, you can tell because the original 1001 Nights was written in the 14th century.
Yeah. And
the English version is from the 18th century. So it's super old stories. Of course, the Disney one, the original one was 92. That's the year that I was born. So that's 26 years ago. Or, 27. 27 years later, they decided to reboot it.
Is it? Yeah, I was about to go. I was as soon as you said 27, I'm like, oh, where do I know that from? Pennywise Strikes Back.
They rebooted it too, but I meant Aladdin. Well, of course, they're doing all the Disney stuff recently, but Jasmine was probably the easiest woman character and princess to bring into this new after the Me Too movement, right? Because she, in the original, was already pretty empowered, rather than the other princesses who were not at all. So it was probably not to, totally shit on Guy Ritchie, but it was probably easier for him to take. I love how I named him as well. This is to you.
Well, if you look at our background.
Yes, well.
Guy Ritchie presents a film by Guy Ritchie.
From Guy Ritchie.
And Disney.
That's a great joke because
if you don't take Merida from Brave.
I'm not an expert on all those princesses, but some other ones are essentially just dead fish waiting to be kissed or something.
Totally,
Yeah.
literally. And
Oh,
in
they're
Snow
gonna
White, it literally is like
they're
she's.
going to do that again, aren't they? They're going to do Little Mermaid at some point, aren't they?
Well, she's also a little bit more empowered than the others. Like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White are like super, as you said, dead fish. So bad.
Dead fish, dude.
Yeah,
I can't
so
wait. I can't wait to see a realistic looking Sebastian.
Oh God.
No, but it's funny also because I watched this video it's a French guy who compares the Disney movies compared to the original fantasy stories.
Story, right? Okay.
Which are usually
Cool.
dream and there's blood and plenty of everything is toned massively down for audience kids.
Yeah, looking at you, Hercules.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I actually know the original of Aladdin, but is it one of Shahrazad's stories?
Yeah, it's in there.
The book Wikipedia says that Aladdin is based on Aladdin and the Magic Lamp rather than the Arabian Nights.
Oh, okay.
So in the book that I sometimes reference, the 7 stories, Aladdin is used as the textbook example of rags to riches.
Sure.
So that gives you an idea of how institutional Aladdin is. That it's the recognized example of rags to riches, like Prince, pauper to prince, or do I nearly loses it in the end, redeems himself, realize the quality was there all along. Idea. So it is easy to do. It's also that Aladdin was a major success for Disney. It was a huge hit. It made so much money.
It wasn't one of my favorite Disney films. Funnily enough, I was always pushed into it because I had to be Jasmine in every party, but I never was because I didn't know who Jasmine was.
And you played Aladdin eventually.
I did play Aladdin
very
last
true,
year. Yeah. So, there
was no socks in this one.
Tables have...
No washing machines.
No, it was a very different style of Aladdin.
Going to be honest, Anouk, their magic carpet might have been a bit better than yours as well.
That was really difficult to play with. Yeah, that won't make any sense to anyone. Yeah, so the story is super relatable. So Disney already knew that people would love it, right? And I think it made 700 million more than its budget.
The first one.
No, sorry, the
one.
2019 one, yeah. So it's already a box office success in a way.
Yeah.
But the one thing that does strike me is that I'm getting a lot more hate than love. I'm hearing a lot more people upset with the film rather than saying like this is amazing. So that Rotten Tomato meter thing is interesting because critics wise, but even like not established critics like on YouTube or social media, like there's a lot of hate.
So the difficulty is that it's a double-edged sword for them, right? Because the idea of rebooting the Disney stuff is because we're now old enough to have our own children, right? If you grew up on this, you might have kids, or you at least remember it, so you'll go and see it. But that's also going, if you don't do this well, your own audience will hate it. So the majority of people that are annoyed by it are people that love the original. But that doesn't matter because if you're a parent and you take your kids and your kids love it, the kid gets to go back and watch the original Aladdin and then they go, okay, that's great. So Disney make double the money.
Yeah, it's pretty genius.
Right? It's such a clever marketing scheme.
Yeah.
But it's like we hold the keys to your nostalgia, right? So that's always going to be the problem. I think the positive review score probably comes out of the fact that when you're watching the film, and in the context of watching it either in a cinema and I would say in an interrupted environment, so when this comes out in home theatre and people are like texting during it, I don't know how it'll hold up. But while you're on the ride, it is enjoyable. Like, I was surprised how much I enjoyed watching the film when it was on. Looking back at it, and for a podcast review standard, I can see the holes, like it's got Swiss cheese holes in some cases. But you really enjoy it on your ride, don't you?
Yeah, the sad thing is, though, is that I realised that I didn't like the 2019 edition because I watched the original.
Yeah.
And it was like, you kind of destroyed everything that everything that made Aladdin what it was. As a standalone film, I really enjoyed it, but for it to be a 2000 edition of Aladdin, it's rubbish.
The funny thing is as well, if you look at Aladdin, this is 1992 Aladdin, there are holes in that film as well.
Well, yeah, of course, it's 92.
That doesn't hold up when you think about it. And the fact that they've got Robin Williams is probably the reason the film was so successful, because that's where the real humour and the enjoyment come from, I felt in it.
Well, he brings like an energy.
And a side note, Iago and Jafar in the original are really good too.
So much better. Well, Iago didn't exist in this film. I don't know.
No, we only realized it was played by Alan Tudyk looking at the credits.
Yeah, because I suppose it's Yann's fave. It's Alan Tudyk.
Well, I apologize, but it's almost like they didn't really need anyone to be the voice of this parrot because it had no character.
It's funny, because they're seeming to make the animals irrelevant in Disney films.
Yeah, but
what's the next Disney film? Lion King.
Oh, God.
Actually, I was thinking, so this one is a bit more grounded in reality.
Yeah.
Obviously, you still have the magic carpet and the genie, but the animals are not speaking. They made it more closer to reality.
I think that's hilarious that they say, oh, yeah, we can have a magic lamp, magic genie, magic magic lamp. What was it? Magic carpet. That's it. And then say, oh, but everything else has to be grounded in reality. Like,
which is also quite hilarious because all the Iago bits are no longer there, but the film is still way longer than the original one, which had them. Yeah,
and funnily enough, there were scenes that dragged, and you thought there was no need for this scene. I think you were talking about Chekhov's
gun.
Oh, the man with a golden gun.
Chekhov's gun, right?
Yeah, Chekhov's gun.
So basically talking about how there were some scenes that were put in, maybe just say one line, and then that one line, because they said something, it comes back later, and you're like, oh, that's why that scene was in there.
With the merchant at the beginning.
Well, I even just the small conversation that Aladdin and Jasmine had, there were some scenes that were just like, that didn't need to span 10, 15 minutes. That could literally have been part of another scene. It didn't need to be that long.
To answer a question I think we vaguely brought up in the beginning of the episode, to link with what I've just said about the merchant thing, this is where you know that you asked, do you think people watched the original Aladdin before you go in? That scene proved to me that they did not. They just straight up assumed that you've seen Aladdin, you know what the story is, because they spoil the end of the film in the first scene. In the first 10 seconds, when you see Will Smith, you're like, oh, so we know the genie makes it then.
Oh, that was a weird. That was
a really strange way, because in the original, it's just a random merchant. It tells you the story to get you to buy the stuff. Like, oh, let me tell you the story of this lamp.
That's the other thing, grounded in reality, because in the original one, the genie is freed, but he's still a genie. In there, he becomes a human, and then that actually destroys any of the original sequels that were there, because he was still a genie, so they'll have to.
Because I did think they were going to set up. Not Return of Jafar, the other one where Aladdin's father is one of the 40 thieves.
Oh,
his dad is Alibaba with the 40 thieves.
Right, okay.
Which is not a bad Disney sequel, actually, to be fair.
Oh, yeah?
And it does have Robin Williams come back for it. So it was like, okay, fine.
Okay.
And I thought they would maybe set that up if this did really well, because they kind of set up Return of Jafar with him going, I'll be back. I'm like, oh, they're not going to do Return of Jafar, are they? That one is terrible.
I don't know how much of a following that has, though.
No, not really a lot. And it was also, I think Return of Jafar was Dan Castellaneta played the genie, because that was during the whole fallout of Robin Williams being very annoyed at Disney for using him as the marketing.
Sure.
I don't know. When you see Will Smith for the first time, you're like, I did think that they were going to save you for the genie, because they don't. There's none of that in the original. There's no the genie turns up before he needs to. I know the voice is Robin Williams of the Merchant, I believe, and they use him for other characters. But it's like,
so you think it was badly done, because this is one of.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's badly. It's not a good. It's like take away any stakes immediately from the film by having a character that makes it to the end.
No,
I know they use in films before the whole let me tell you the story that you know that they'll survive, which is fine. I mean, look at Chernobyl, right? Chernobyl starts with a very important death. And you go, oh, so he doesn't make it to the end, but it's fine. That doesn't take away the rest of the stakes from the TV show. But this one, it's like, oh, well, Will Smith survived.
It did, yeah. Now my constant example is obviously the very first episode of Breaking Bad. So it starts, you're in the action, and the guy is half naked with a gun, and you have no idea and then it goes back.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to do it.
Because you're interested as to how they got there. It's almost like there's too much of a stark difference between the human Will Smith and the genie Will Smith that actually I didn't even think about the guys telling the story. It was almost like, okay, well, this is a completely different character.
Me too. Yes.
So that was a problem. I don't know if they wanted you to obsess over that fact, like, oh, that's the same guy. But it was almost like you immediately forgot that was, it was the merchant and the genie is the same guy. Like that never mattered.
No, and the thing is like they could, like Yann just said, they could have made that different. Like the reveal that he's human is a twist, right? In a way, because it didn't happen in the original. They could have used that at the end going, so, well, the setup, the start going, the lamp is beside Will Smith, you're like, oh, so he's still the genie. But the fact that the kids go dad, you're like, oh, well, he's clearly a human then. I've never heard of genie children. I don't know how that works.
Dahlia.
Oh, yeah, entirely new subplot.
She had no character at all. And so the kind of dramatic reveal that they gave her at the end was like, we didn't need this because I don't care about her. Especially because you see the back of her in the beginning.
Maybe, most of the criticism that DB Weiss and, the two Game of Thrones get is when they run out of material. Dahlia was completely created out of thin air.
Yeah.
So maybe they really didn't get her.
Yeah, I think the main problem with the new Aladdin is that if you start talking about it, you actually kind of see all the holes. And I think there are a lot of films like that, right? Like you really enjoyed it and you walk out saying, oh, this and this and this was really good. And then you sit down and you actually talk about it and you realize that there's so much that was wrong and kind of sad because funny enough, I agree with Wikipedia on this. It actually kind of sums it up pretty well. Like acting I thought was really strong, costumes I thought was amazing, like, and location
It looked clean though,
of course.
It wasn't set in Old Delhi, was it?
No, it was Hollywood Agrabah.
But
which is also fine. Like I didn't find that offensive at all. Like I don't buy into all of that.
It's a Disney film.
It's
not Martin Scorsese, is it?
No, but also if you watch any Bollywood film or Lollywood film, they clean up too.
Yeah.
Like it's not like, I think what was nice was that they had fun with the costumes. Like they had costume changes and they were different colors and they really had fun with the fact that this is like a very colorful culture, which is awesome. I thought it was respectful. When they danced, it had like, Bollywood themes, which I thought was fun. When it comes to like direction though, there were scenes that didn't make sense. It dragged in certain moments. I almost felt like Will Smith was like, it felt like he wasn't comfortable in this role at all. But there was so much more energy in the original Aladdin that he brought to the genie, and Will Smith just didn't have that.
You know the well-known story of how one of the reasons they got Robin Williams is that the animators of Aladdin did animation based off of one of his stand-ups. So it really did evolve around Robin Williams and the energy that allowed the genie character to be what it was.
Right.
And,
go on.
And also, when the film was made, he improvised pretty much everything, and then they animated his impros.
Sure.
Because that's going around with that character. Like that's what a good voice actor does. You forget the human behind it, and in acting as well, to be fair. But with voice acting, it's even more easier because they've got the visualized aspect, and they're removed as from not being a human person as well. So it's a bit of that.
I mean, it depends on who you are, but yeah I guess like I probably find it a lot more easier to be Will Smith than Robin Williams. Because I don't have any. I've never done voice acting before in that way, so I would find it really difficult to get to that level of energy and that level of commitment. No, I just felt like it's fine to bring your own thing to a character. Like, obviously, I didn't want Will Smith to be Robin Williams. That would be totally wrong.
There's an easy parallel we can go for here. Let's take there are two other characters in cinema that have had multiple versions that are all different. The British version is James Bond. Sean Connery's Bond is not the same as Daniel Craig's Bond. Daniel Craig's Bond is not the same as George Lazenby or Pierce Brosnan, right? That's a British version. They've all got difference, but they're all equally good. The other one...
The Doctor.
I was going to say, the Joker.
Oh, yeah.
The Joker is one of these roles that they are not the same. Jack Nicholson is excellent, but Jack Nicholson's is not the same as Heath Ledger's. Or Mark Hamill's is totally different to Heath Ledger's. And also to Cesar Romero, who was in the 60s, right? So there are multiple... They are so different.
Yeah.
But the genie could have been that. It could have been if you did something different and brought a bit of what you can bring to it would work. But there isn't.
He has that like American attitude, which is part of Will Smith, right?
But he isn't he isn't enough. What people want from this one is an evolved form of him from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Sure.
Which I don't think they got. I don't know what you're right. There is something off. And I don't know if it's because they jump back and forth between animation and human. Acting it is different from voice acting it as well.
Well, he might have been acting to a green screen, and that's really difficult for someone who hasn't done that before. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's not an easy thing to do.
Wait, who's acting to a green screen?
Will Smith.
Really?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that maybe that would have made the distance.
Well, I think that's why they chose... Well, one, because they spent all the money to get Will Smith in the first place. A lot of the green screen stuff would have been Aladdin to the genie, right? And then Will Smith would be doing a voice thing on his own. So I guess in that sense, yeah, he'd be on his own too. That's probably why they made him human as well. One, to save money, but two, it's between two people. But I think the difference was that when he wasn't animated, he wasn't enough of the genie. He was just another character.
Yeah.
It lost its... what Robin Williams is this constant energy. Even in the lower bits, the energy is there. Like in the garden scenes in the original where he's like... Or when he's the bee, like telling him what to say and stuff like that. It's like, that's a different level of energy than him doing Prince Ali and Friend Like Me. But for this one, the total shifts, it's like playing two different characters almost.
It's like the genie made you all energetic and crazy. It's not like it changes your character.
No, because you're the same character. You're just disguised.
And probably it was some kind of foreshadowing that we had Will Smith as the human, a human-looking genie quite a lot, because actually in the original one, his nav is always blue except a few times, during the Prince Ali song when he morphed into different people.
Yeah.
But I think it was not blue less than 5 minutes in the whole movie. Whereas here, it looked human for quite a bit. So it's quite a foreshadowing, like, oh, maybe he'll stay his own color for ever at the end.
I think that's giving the film more credit than it's worth. I do think it's because they didn't have the money. And also, do you guys remember the backlash when the trailer came out? Everyone was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, and I will actually say that Will Smith was a lot better than he was in the trailer. I don't know why they edited it that way. Oh God, they've completely ruined it. And actually in the film, he wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be.
I think that's also to do with the fact of what I said earlier with when you're in the zone, when you're with the film in itself, in a dark room watching it, you're into it because of the surrounding you're in.
Sure.
Before we saw the film, there's a lot of videos on YouTube floating around. It was like Prince Ali swapping between Robin Williams and Will Smith. And in that context, Will Smith's version is not great. In fact, it's not great in the film, but like I said earlier, when you're in the film, you don't notice it. Or you're like, you go with it because you feel it, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think in that sense, it's like when you separate it from the trailer and it's like...
I definitely walked out and I was like, oh, that was awesome. Oh, I love this. Actually, I think a film, it's important to kind of stew in it for a few days and then you look at it and you look back and think, actually, it's really easy to get, totally enveloped in all of the magic and the music and the colors, but it's just distraction. Actually, it's not as spectacular as it could have been.
As much as we said stuff about the wokeness of Jasmine's writing, that Naomi Scott is great.
Yeah, no, of course. Like, as I said, acting, I think, was really on point.
Well, except Jafar. I think Jafar was a bit...
I think with what they were given, I think Jafar's character...
maybe you're right, actually. Yeah,
I think Jafar's character was completely taken away, as Iago's was.
I mean, Raja was great. Even in the original, I'm like, Raja's pointless, just because every Disney princess had to have like an animal companion. Even Pocahontas had the bloody owl.
Yeah, and the beaver.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, the beaver, yeah, you're right. It's not an owl, it's a beaver. Or is that a raccoon?
Raccoon?
It's a raccoon, yeah.
I quite like Raja in the original one, just because it added, she wasn't, Jasmine wasn't always alone. She kind of came with a tiger. Thought it was just a little interesting, and he was cute and a little bit dopey, but by grounding it in reality, as Yann said earlier, it's almost like they made them totally devoid of character.
But it's not grounded in nothing realism, because it licks his face. If a tiger licks you, it would break the skin, because their tongues are that rough. So his face should be bleeding. Oh, here we go.
They totally destroyed Abu. He was actually creepy to look at. Like, his eyes were like, he looked like he had conjunctivitis.
It was like they took the model of, that monkey that got all the work from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh yeah,
like it appears
in Friends.
Yeah, more recently the Hangover movies as well.
Yeah,
that style of monkey. They basically took that and just animated it. It's like, get the real monkey.
Yeah,
just use the real monkey.
I guess it probably would be harder to make a monkey do all the things you want. Let's hope they don't do that with actors.
I've said this before. I said that there, but I've just realised I remember watching the trailer for the 1990s version of the Jungle Book with live animals, and it looks terrible. So
I saw the Jon Favreau Jungle Book, and that was really good.
The thing is, though, they talked.
I'm sorry, that's not an excuse.
I know, but it's because Abu didn't speak. He kind of speaks in the original, like it's kind of there because it's
Donald Duck speak.
Yeah, it's
Did you to get back 1 second did you watch Mowgli?
Andy Serkis? No, I've not seen it yet.
Oh no,
it's more based on the original novel, or was it a short story? Well, the original
Rudyard Kipling
piece of writing, literature,
yes. And so you don't have King Louis.
I'm a king of swingers.
It's a lot darker, isn't it? The Rudyard Kipling one. It doesn't matter if they didn't speak. It was like they kind of took away from, and because they're quite central characters in a way, the sidekicks of the two main characters, quite a lot of the film is boring. They were the fun things in it. When they were having boring conversations, Disney, as always, very cleverly has something funny and childish in it. It was like the boring conversations were the only thing that was in the scene, and so you had nothing fun in the whole of the direction.
That's an interesting thought then, actually, Anouk, with the idea that if they've made this film for, say, us, and the kids are bored, but they go home and watch the original and they're entertained. Yeah. So it's like, who is this actually made for? Is this made for us, or is it made for kids? What's the demographic of the film?
Well, then we go back and slam it. So, because if it was made for us, it would be a lot darker and more adult.
Yeah.
Iago was not only cracking jokes, it was the brain sometimes. He suggested the wedding.
Oh yeah, and he was super obnoxious and horrible and evil. Like I actually felt sorry for the parrot at the end in the 2019 one, because he did nothing. He was just
a parrot.
Yeah, he was like the crow in Game of Thrones. He just kind of repeated after. Sorry.
If you're wondering what she's on about, read the book.
Just someone that, what anyone's saying, but
the crow in Game of Thrones has more character, and it only repeats like certain words.
It's not like it's repeating things to like make it more pronounced. It's literally anything is repeated because it's parrot.
It's like they couldn't decide if the animals in this film were real or if they were like an animated film animals.
Yeah, exactly. Watching the original Aladdin, it's like, again, the genius of Disney is that any age you can watch it, right? Mm-hmm, so this whole thing of like, oh, we have to change it to make the kids who were kids in 92, they're now, 27, 28 in their 30s. We need to make a film for them. I don't know, maybe we need to make a film for the new CGI computer world. In a world where you can make more incredible things with CGI, it's a bit strange that they decided to make characters devoid of anything.
Yeah, there are points in the film that it feels out of focus as well. Like it's obviously like
the monkey was really bad.
The monkey was bad.
It's really,
I don't know
really
what
bad.
There's some bits you're like, how did this get through? Like there are clear slip up. Like the square that we saw about 18 times. That one bit of Agrabah. We never saw any other bits of Agrabah, but there's like one square where the market is, and then where Prince Ali turns up. Like it's fine to have the set, which was cool. I'm like, okay, we're doing sets again. When they're doing the whole sequence of like one step ahead, you're like, okay, but there was like set piece and then not set PC at the same time, and then even like when it was we did the soar into like Arabian Nights, and like there's just void of character. Like you watch the original film and you get this like stark red sunset and the ominous of the massive palace, Where in this one, the palace just kind of slipped into the background. It was like half King's Landing, and then, in fairness, which I thought was quite good, it did feel styled off of, I think it's called the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul.
Haggis?
No, Hagis, Sophia, Sofia. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. Massive temple in Istanbul. But it's like the Disney one had so much character. Like this big, massive palace over this small kingdom.
Yeah, talking about set pieces, I thought that, when Jasmine is looking through her maps, because, she's an empowered woman, she has to be educated. But do you know what? But there's nothing wrong with that. She's looking through it, and then he's trying to get the genie who is flirting with Jasmine's handmaid, and I don't know why he has to have a romantic connection with, I don't know why that was brought in, but anyway, he needs to get the genie to put a Babwa on the map because Jasmine has realized that a Babwa doesn't exist. See, the way that I'm explaining it is kind of how it was shown. It was like, okay, what? Like, it was really badly explained, and that could have been quite a funny moment, that she's like, a Babwa doesn't exist. And also a little bit of a funny nod to the 1992 version where it's like, that was slightly racist. Let's have a joke with it. They could have had fun with it, but they decided to sort of elongate it to being a bit awkward.
Yeah, it's one of the things I've always thought about, and this is the complaint with Romeo and Juliet as well, actually, looking at you, Bill. They fall in love so quickly and they don't know each other, which is kind of the drama of the play that's so tragic.
Yeah.
And in the original one, they don't spend that much time together, and like it takes one carpet. Well, actually, no, like the whole sequence at the beginning of the 92 one, and they're like, okay, I'm kind of into you, and then the carpet ride kind of like, okay, I'm really into you. But in this one, it's like they spend so much time together and nothing really progresses with them, like relationship wise.
Yeah.
Like the speed that Dahlia got, like, it was into Will Smith. It's like, could we not have had a tiny bit of urgency with Jasmine and Aladdin? Because did you feel chemistry between the two of them?
No,
because I don't think I did.
They were best friends. Like
Yeah.
they acted like they were really good friends, and that was kind of enough for me. But then they kissed at the end, and I was like, oh, that looks
yeah,
wrong.
because the bit after A Whole New World in the original, like they look like they're going to kiss anyway, and then the rug pushes them in to make the move, right?
Oh, yeah.
In this one, it just felt a bit stinted. It's like, this doesn't really feel earned.
Probably because Jafar wasn't evil enough. Like in the original, he becomes this like with the color scheme as well. It's like he becomes this like red monster, and then he becomes a snake, and then he puts Jasmine in a huge hourglass, which is awesome. And I understand
Jasmine.
it might have been too. Sorry, you're not for Jasmine. She gets saved.
Are you for imprisoning women, Anouk?
Yeah, totally. Do you know what? It's like, it's probably because there was no urgency, and we don't need to save people from anything because Jafar isn't really that much of a threat.
Surface
Maybe they
level.
spent too much time on the CGI of animals. I don't know.
It's like they watched the original Aladdin and went, right, let's do that, but let's make it longer. But I think that's why the character disappears, because we spend so long that we're like, oh, I get it already. Come on, let's go on with it. Like the whole in the gardens having the dance off. I'm like, right, because this was needed. And then I went to the bathroom at the bit where he like meets Jasmine, which was it's better if she's in the room when they're discussing him, but also is a different idea because she comes in angry. It's like, why are you talking about me when I'm not here? I'm not to be sold. At least let me in the conversation in the original. But in this one, she's there and he makes an arse of it. But I didn't see that scene.
That also wasn't funny. Like, it could have been funny for 5 minutes, but yeah, they kind of added another 10 minutes to it.
And then we had the previous king of Sweden or some Scandinavian sort of Germanic place.
I don't know what
he was there for some reason. It's like,
Yeah.
right, we needed him to see that Jasmine doesn't want an idiot.
I don't know what that was, because it's not like he came back and he had a character. It was like, oh, that's it for his character. Okay.
And then the guard was a character as well. Obeys the law until Jasmine says, don't obey the law. Obey me. You're like, all right, I'll obey you.
Yeah.
Well, they needed 45 extra minutes, so they added bits.
So they added it, yeah.
And it didn't do anything with those extra 45 minutes. It's like, what do we need these extra 45 minutes for? It's like,
Add Dahlia.
add Dahlia, add Prince Ali when we're waiting for the Sultan to join in the song. It's like, okay, fine. And make the sequence where he, like, the genie explains, make you a prince and all that sort of stuff. That was longer as well. It's like, okay, whatever, but
Is it because they don't trust that their audiences are clever? and we'll just understand.
No, it's because all movies now have, probably because of the amount of money you pay to see a movie, they better not just be 90 minutes. Well, I can wait for the DVD if it's 90 minutes.
No, that's so annoying.
That might be the case, like time in the cinema investments. So, because films are so long, it's very rare you get a film that's 90 minutes anymore. Because all TV is like an hour now.
You have to have, like, in those multiplexes, there was one I've read about, like, he had, like, a new screening of Avengers Endgame starting every 15 minutes. Like, that's the 3-hour film, so they must have had, like, I don't know, 25 screens or something.
Jesus.
Yeah.
The things that we're saying this as a part, they did do some decent things. The fact that it was cast correctly, because that's one of the things. You watch the original and you like, oh, I wonder who the voice actresses are. They're not Asian.
Well, the thing is, you have to do research, right? Because you have no idea what they look like.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, of course, if you look into the voice actors, a lot of them are white. But I mean, that's just to do with the time. Not that that's an excuse, but it kind of is. Like, that was just the way that Disney and the Hollywood works. And even now, we're kind of breaking things differently. The interesting thing is that, like, you're seeing more and more brown actors becoming, like, household names. And they will be in the next few generations, which is cool. And it was nice to see, as, a mixed race girl, a lot of brown names, because, you would never have seen that as a kid. I would never have seen that. So I thought that was awesome. I don't know. There were a lot of problems with it. Because again, if you watch the original, you see what it could have been, and that's the problem. Yeah, there are certain things, of course, that they did right, but that's a bit of a shame. Yeah,
I do remember Bin Laden, the one-man show. Sam talks about Abu, because his name is also Abu something, like Abu, like Aladdin's little monkey friend, Prince Abu Boo. In magic, like not the type that we see in Aladdin, but simulated one, like tricks and stuff. There is one legendary magic trick called the Indian rope trick, and we see it's portrayed a bit in, I think, the original. It's the idea, so you've got a basket with a rope in it. The guy is with his recorder flute doing the thing, and then the rope goes up and up and up in the sky, and then he actually climbs and then disappears.
Oh.
No one to this day knows how it works. And actually in the original writings, essentially some stuff happens while he's supposedly in another dimension up, and some of his body parts are just being thrown, like as if he had been like slashed. Yeah, a grim magic trick.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We got anything else? Music wasn't great either. Nice, Jasmine had a song.
And I quite, in a sense of, like, in the moment when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, everyone around is disappearing. And like, it's all a bit like Celine Dion moment. Yeah. I mean, if you listen to the song, it's been heard before a little bit.
I mean, it's not Colours of the Wind.
It's not ABBA. Was it that we talked about?
That's not Voulez-Vous. It's SOS.
Yeah, there are moments where it's like that sounds like ABBA, but yeah, it's not the most original song, but that wasn't, I didn't hate it at all.
Baby steps of progressiveness. I mean, good thought but poor execution sort of idea going on here, I feel.
The sleeper as woke. No, awakened, we say. No, he woke in 2008. Oh, okay. I don't have anything
cool.
about the film, though.
Ratings? Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Yann, was Aladdin 1992 good, bad, or just plain standard?
It was good. I did not grow up with it, so I don't have this whole like, oh, maybe they would destroy my childhood. And no, I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. But again, as was discussed a few times here, if you're asking me now if the new one was good, well, I enjoyed the new one a lot. Well, I think it's constantly shifting for the new one between good and either meh, but we don't have a meh category.
No.
It's shifting between two categories. A good one and a not that incredible one.
Anouk, 92 and then 2019.
So again, I wasn't brought up with it, so again, I don't have the nostalgia thing, but it was so much fun to watch it as an adult, and as a huge Disney fan. So it didn't ruin my childhood watching the 2019 one like Dumbo did. So the new one. So after an hour and a half of slating it, I thought it was good.
What a plot twist.
In terms of enjoyment in the moment, like, I did walk out thinking, oh, that was awesome. So maybe kind of like a low good with a flair of
meh.
Yeah, a little kind of, I don't know.
All right, so 92 is good.
Yeah.
Plain as that. This is a definition of just plain standard, right?
Do you think?
Yeah, this is my thought, right? The diversity of the casting is a great thing. We talked at length about this in Overlord, and we actually brought it up on. We didn't even notice it, but it was good to see Hamish Patel as the lead as Jack in Yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And this film, it's good as well. It's great that it's a good decision that Disney made the choice to hire, but it's not the reason they made the film. And that's my one merit of the film that I liked. I'm like, good diversity for a change, right?
And it wasn't marketed as like, oh, look at us, we're ticking boxes.
Yeah, and that would be annoying if they did that. So that's the flair. But everything else, this movie doesn't need to exist. This movie doesn't add anything to Aladdin except Jasmine's fleshed out a bit more. But in doing that, there are negative sides to that too. So it's like, it's 50-50. So for me, this is just plain standard with a flair of like good work on the diverse casting. And it's fun, but Atomic Blonde was fun, and it's probably just plain standard too in hindsight. We put it in good, maybe revisit that at some point and put it in just plain standard too. But this is just plain standard. I enjoyed watching Jumanji, and it's just plain standard. You know, in the same vein. So I feel that this is just plain standard because
it was better than Jumanji.
Well, yeah, but that's because you like Aladdin. If this was,
but I love Jumanji too.
But if this is my point. Take away the originals of both of them, ironically, Robin Williams films.
Yeah.
Take away that and look at them on their own. This is just plain standard. Unfortunately for the film, everyone's majority not going to agree with it because it uses the original one to boost its ticket sales. If this was purely on its own by the merit of the trailer and word of mouth, and Aladdin, the original with Robin Williams, didn't exist or didn't have that cult following that it does because it's good, would this be a bomb? Maybe. Would people be that positive on the audience score? I don't know. But for me, this is just plain standard. It's the standard Disney. It doesn't add anything new. And if it was an option, look at it this way. In the future, you're going to own 2 DVDs. You're going to own this, and you're going to own the Aladdin 1992. Which one are you going to show your kids?
Sure, of course. The 92 one.
92. So yeah, just plain standard for me, I think.
Fair. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a few concluding things. Well, it's not concluding, it's after because it's not related. So I'd like to say hi to Joss Whedon, who's turning 55 at the time of this recording. He was a co-star in Conman. Yay! Hi, buddy.
So cool.
And also hello to Frances McDormand, who turned 62 at the time of this recording, and who will now be featured in all our questionnaire. Now it will be, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear Frances McDormand say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh yeah, because of Good Omens, yeah.
Also, just one thing that I have not talked about before, the displays, they are starting to fall from the walls. All of them, so it's like a square magnetic thingy that is actually allowing them to stick. And in my room, 2 of them are now on the floor. Here, the one with Troika above the whole thing is gone. Now the one behind Boriana's stuff, the actual plates are great, but the metallic stuff that are stuck on the wall are not staying stuck for long enough. Maybe it's because of our walls. I don't know. But
yeah, maybe because it's been in the same space for so long as well.
And one last thing about I talked about wokeness a few times here. The Titania McGrath in her book Woke, and you talked about Romeo and Juliet. She talks so people can really realize how this play is really problematic. She had her 3-year-old sister play Juliet with a 62-year-old bearded Romeo.
That's the wrong way to go about it. It's a very funny book.
And she's actually, I'll talk about that in a Fringe episode, but you would have heard before this or after, I don't remember. Anyway, I think this is us done.
Yeah.
Sweet.
For this. It's funny because recently, thanks to, I guess, the hourglass, 2 of our episodes were under an hour, and there was 42 minutes and then 58. So I think we're, this one will be probably a bit longer.
Yeah,
we're an hour and 15 already.
15, something like that, yeah.
But, yeah.
Before we go, shall we take a vote on where we stand then, if it's in vain of this new format? Do you agree with the critical score, the audience score of critical 54 or audience 94, 96 sort of score? Which camp do you fall into?
Well, I've not read any of the actual comments under those numbers, so I probably should do that and to be able to say, yeah, well, I see where they're coming from, but it's just crap. I'm not agreeing with any of that. I have no idea. I've not read the comments.
Well, I don't mean do you agree with the comments? I do you agree with the score? Which score is more accurate to your opinion?
50. I would never say that this was 94%.
Yeah, probably 57. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Yann's a lover of Hamlet. Are we seeing Lion King? Are we not going to see it?
I feel like we have to see it.
Right, okay.
I've watched, and I think it was less than 2 years ago, I've watched the film for the first time and the play at the Lyceum in London.
All right, well,
both are very good.
Looks like we're doing it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm going to have to see it anyway because the cast in itself is amazing. So
yeah, but I'm worried now because the animals didn't work in Aladdin.
I know.
Unless all the money for the animal animations went to Lion King when they were getting developed at the same time.
True.
On that downward note for me, yeah, let's end this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again for listening. We were
Adam.
Anouk.
and Yann. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.